gel comes in lots of different thicknesses, especially when we're talking about builder gel for extensions. So I want to go over today all the different viscosities of gel and how to choose the right one for the right application. Hey guys, it's Liz from the Nail Hub, and we have been working towards doing gel extensions on my new Nail Fundamentals playlist. I'm really excited to be kind of building up to this. And if you have not watched all of my previous videos on the Nail Fundamentals playlist, I really recommend you go and you start from the beginning. It's really important that you understand all of the pieces in the puzzle that come up to doing extensions, because if you don't have the proper prep, you don't have the proper foundation, or even if you're using a bunch of primers, which I've talked about in previous videos, then you're gonna have issues with keeping all of your hard work on your nails. So this is something that I want you guys to really prep for. And like I said, if you haven't watched all the videos coming up to this video, please go back and watch them from the beginning, okay? So today we're gonna talk about the different thicknesses of gel and how you can properly choose the right one for the right type of application. A lot of people, when they get into doing extensions or when they get into doing artificial enhancements, they use a one-step gel, or they use like one thin product because they're not sure what all the differences are. And when you get into builder gels particularly, there are so many colors, so many thicknesses, so many different formulas that it's really hard to understand what to choose and how you're going to use it. So I wanted to break it down and kind of discuss the different categories of gels and how we're going to use each one. Today, I also wanted to do a quick shout out to Daily Disco. If you haven't checked them out on Instagram, please do so. These chicks are really cool, and they do custom chain embroidery on basically anything you can think of. So today I'm wearing my custom denim jacket. You'll see that I have a nice little L here for Liz. And if you don't know what Laverne and Shirley is, then I'm probably dating myself a lot. But when I was a kid, I used to love to watch Laverne and Shirley with my mom. And Laverne is a character on a TV show, and she always has an L on all of her sweaters and all of her jackets and everything. So I wanted a Laverne-esque L on my jacket, which Daily Disco did for me. And the best part, can we just talk about how cool this jacket is? I'm so excited about this. So you can see I've got the Nail Hub right here, and I'm just super pumped about this jacket. So if you want a custom jacket or a custom anything, backpack, bag, whatever, check out Daily Disco on Instagram. I'm going to put the little handle here on my video, and that way you guys can check them out as well. But these girls are really cool, and they made the most awesome custom jacket for me, so I'm really excited, and I just wanted to show you on my channel my new jacket. You've probably seen me post it on my social media as well, but I'm super pumped. I think I might just live in this thing. So anyway, thanks Daily Disco for my awesome jacket. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. All right, so in order to figure out viscosity, let's kind of talk about some different examples. I'm gonna show you a really thick, a medium, like a semi-medium. Okay. And more of a thin. And let me get a clean, sorry, not a clean, but a clear thin gel. Really thin. Okay. So I've got lots of different types of gel here, and you can see even just by looking at the jar of gel itself, you can see a big difference. Thicker, thinner, right? So when we're talking about what we want to choose for different types of things, we want to think about the different idea behind what these formulas are going to be able to do for us. A thicker gel comes in really handy when we are applying on something like a nail form. So with a thick gel, let me just grab some with my spatula here. Okay. A thick gel typically will not move at all. So you can see this is really, really sticky, and it doesn't even self-level. It has that little peak on it still. So when I mess around with really thick gel, you'll see that I can pick up like a whole glob of it. It's usually very stringy, which means it's got strings when you pull on it. And you can see how thick that is. It just keeps its shape. It doesn't self-level at all. So a lot of people look at gels like this and they're like, oh my God, why would I want something like this? Or some people are drawn to this because it doesn't move, So they're thinking, oh, this gel's gonna be really easy to work with because it doesn't move at all. Okay, there's a perfect example of why we would use a gel like this, and I'll show you in just a second, and also just to show you a slightly syrupy than the other one. It's just a little bit easier to pull, and you can see it's even a little bit stringier, just stretches a little bit more than the last one. So this is kind of just one step thinner than the other one that I just showed you, okay? So why would we use a thick gel like this? Well, for example, once I start getting into showing you guys how to do extensions, when we do extensions on a nail form, which I'll show you on this finger in my next video, but when we get into doing extensions, we want to make sure that the gel isn't going to slip and slide on the nail form. So if I, as a, let's say I don't know the difference, I just pick up a really thin gel, I'm a beginner, I put a whole bunch of gel on this nail form. Let's say it's also really warm in this room and I don't, I'm not in control of my product. So I put a lot of gel in the nail form like this, okay? The benefit of a gel like this is that it's going to self-level for me, which means it's going to get smooth on its own, and you can see it's already starting to do that. However, if I take too long, or if I don't want this gel to move on the nail form, I'm going to get into a situation where this is going to start to droop on the sides. So you can see it's already starting to kind of like run down the sides of the nail form, and we want to use gels to be able to achieve a specific thing right quickly, right? Like we basically don't want to do more work trying to fix something that the gel did that we didn't want. We want to choose gels that are going to allow us to do just the right thing in the right amount of time and move on to a different part of the procedure. So this gel, in my personal opinion, is not something that I would recommend that a beginner sculpt with, or even someone who's like an intermediate nail tech. Now, if you're able to apply gel really, really quickly, you're going to get to the point where you do like thin gels. But you can see that it's kind of losing its shape in the center, and it's just starting to run down the sides of the nail form, okay? Especially if this was a really hot room, like you can see right here, I'm starting to get like a little teardrop on the side. So this is not a gel I would recommend for using on the actual nail form itself when you're going to create the extension. In contrast, I'll show you guys a different type of texture. So let me just scrape off my gel so I'm not going to waste it. And you can do this with, you can practice this and scrape off the gel instead of wasting your gel by curing it. Just scrape it off, and even if there's a little bit of gel left on the form, who cares? Not a big deal, okay? So in contrast, let me show you a thick gel. Now, a thick gel, the disadvantage is it's going to be really, really sticky and it's not going to self-level, but I'm going to be able to create the shape that I want and the extension that I want without this gel moving. So I can paint it down the form. And again, I'm just showing you guys this so you can get an idea of the differences between the viscosities. This isn't how we're going to actually do it on the nail, but I just wanted to show you, okay? So I can perfectly paint the extension on the nail form and it's not going to move at all. And you'll see that it does kind of self-level if we use enough of the product, but if I touch this, I am going to get those peaks and valleys like so. Okay, so can you see that it doesn't self-level as much as the other one does, but it's also not moving on the nail form, so that's an advantage to a thick gel on a nail form versus a thin gel on a nail form. So maybe after seeing this, you guys can kind of already see the trend here. So when we're doing something where we don't want the gel to move, we want to use a thicker gel. When we're doing a part of the application where we do want the gel to self-level, like in the previous videos I've shown you guys where we're doing overlays and we want the gel to be perfectly smooth without having to file it, we are going to want to use a gel that self-levels, okay? So this is where the difference between a thick gel comes into play and a thin gel comes into play. And you really need to start thinking about what am I doing and what is going to be the best gel for that particular situation that's going to allow me to do the work in the quickest amount of time, the most efficiently, without any rework. And so we start to break down the service into pieces and parts. So I usually recommend using a thick gel for the actual extension on the nail form. And then when we get into actually building what I call the body of the nail, so for example, if this were an actual finger, this part would be the extension that's on the nail form, and back here, this peachy part we can pretend is the actual nail. So on the nail and even out onto the extension, we do want that part to actually self-level because we want to create a nice smooth surface and we don't want to have to finish file a lot. So once we create the extension with a thicker gel, we can go in and create the main body of the nail or the main portion of the nail with a thinner gel that's going to self-level. And you can even see this on camera. When I dip in with my brush, you'll immediately see the gel go back and smooth itself inside the jar, okay? So depending on how quickly a gel does that is how thick or thin it is. And you can even tell this just by dipping your brush or a spatula into the jar, just kind of looking at the behavior of it, seeing, is it really sticky? Is it more syrupy? Does the string break really quickly? Does it not? And that'll kind of tell you how sticky it is and how thick it is. And this is where you really get into personal preferences. And like I said, when I'm doing, even me, when I'm doing gel nails on someone else, I do typically use 2 different gels because I want to make sure that I can do as much of the work as possible in one given go. And so when I do extensions with a thicker gel, I'm able to do all 4 fingers and be able to do that rather than having to do 1 finger at a time. Or if you're doing something really, really quick, like an overlay, then I do opt for a thinner gel because that's going to allow me to get the nail on quickly and it's going to self-level really, really nicely. So again, it just depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. But I want you guys to start thinking about the differences between a thick gel and a thin gel and when you would use either one. Now, a middle viscosity gel like this one is going to be nice for both extensions and also for people that do want to be able to sculpt nails quickly. And it does self-level ever so slightly. And so if you're looking for something that is going to create a nice extension without moving so much, but is also going to give you a little bit of a smoothing effect, you can use a medium viscosity gel. But I do like to use kind of 2 different ones because I find that even this type of gel, when I use it for the full body of the nail, it ends up being a little bit too bumpy and it causes a lot of finish filing. So I would use this one even for an extension. It just depends on if you want your extensions to be smoother. And the other thing too that you could also consider is that if you're going to be doing a clear extension under a pink and white, which I'll get into as we do future videos, you'll see why a thick gel that semi-self-levels is useful because you won't be filing into the color that you put on top of it. But that's getting a little bit advanced for what we're talking about today. Okay, you'll also see that viscosities also come in colors. So just like we had this thick gel in clear, it also comes in pink. So a lot of people get confused by this because they're like, I don't understand why I would choose clear, why I would choose pink, what do I choose the different things for? Well, it really just comes down to personal preference, and the different types of pinks that you choose really comes down to what you're trying to do. So I'm going to put a peachy pink in here so you guys can see that. But the idea behind this is that we're able to achieve not only the thickness of gel that we want to use, but also the color of gel that we want to use. So usually peachy tones are better for darker skin tones. Sometimes when you do this kind of Pepto-Bismol pink, it looks a little bit artificial on someone with a darker skin tone. On someone like me, it goes really well because I am very fair and I do have a pink reddish base to my skin. I have a very pink skin. So pink usually goes with my type of nail bed color, and you can see that even my nail bed is very pink. So a pinker type of shade would look nicer. A peachier color usually looks better with someone who has more of an olive skin tone, or they've got more of a green undertone to their skin. Just like makeup, we can also choose a foundation color for our nails that matches better. So that's why you would choose a different type of pink. And you also have the option to have different viscosity. So you can see that this one is self-leveling, whereas this one is not. So depending on your preference, or again, depending on what you're trying to do, whether it's an extension, whether it's creating the full body of the nail, we're able to do that with different colors. So just like we did with the clears, the different viscosities, we're able to do that with pinks. And there's also ones that are opaque, and there's also ones that are much thinner. So let me just show you more of a natural color. So you'll see that this one is kind of the same type of pink tone, but you can see that it's more translucent. Okay, and then this one's even a little bit more translucent. And this one, believe it or not, is actually pink. So if I paint some, can you guys see that this has actually like a pink clear tone to it? There we go. So you can see that that's actually not clear. It has like a pink tone to it. So there's actually clear with a little flash of pink in it, just to give that nail a little bit of a pink tone. If you wanted a clear effect, but you wanted it to have a little bit of a pink tone to it. There's the semi-translucent, then there's the opaque, and then again, there's the different viscosities. So it really just comes down to, again, what you're trying to achieve, what's gonna work best for that particular type of application. Do you want it to be self-leveling? Do you not want it to self-level? Do you want it to stay where it's placed? And also, what kind of color are you going for? And what do you want that gel to do, okay? And also taking into consideration people's natural skin tones, what's gonna look best for them, and making sure that the nail is gonna look as natural and aesthetically pleasing as possible without it looking super artificial. But it really just depends on what you're trying to do. So there's lots of different options when it comes to thick versus thin, and then all the different kinds of pinks and peaches, and even natural nail colors that are available, like if you want to build something. And then you can see that this one is like a slightly different formula. This one actually has some fiber in it. So there's lots of different options when it comes to the different types of gels that are available. There's also even colored builder, which I'll show you guys. Okay. So here is something completely different. So this is actually a builder gel, but it's colored so that you can actually make French nail, you know, with a blue tip on it, or you can do all kinds of things. So there's also even builder gels that have color built into it. That way you can create your whole nail as part of the nail art that you're creating. So there's lots of different options out there, and you can see this one is actually a thicker viscosity. It's not self-leveling, it just stays right where it is. And this would be a thicker extension gel, builder gel, but it has a completely different non-natural color to it. It's blue. So there are tons of options when it comes to things like this, and it just depends on what we're trying to do. So I wanted to show you guys these viscosities and these different colors so that you can get an idea of why you would choose one over the other and what the different gels do. And that way when we do our actual extensions, you guys are gonna have a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve here. So let's do a quick recap. I'm gonna compare thick gel versus thin gel for you, just to give you guys kind of a reference point for thinking about which gel to use when. So thick gel definitely is great for extensions on nail forms. It's also great for extensions on long tips if you're trying to maintain complete control over the gel the entire time. This type of gel will not move around on you, so you're able to do more at one time if you want to be able to do all 5 fingers at one time before you cure, or if you want to be able to do 4 at a time. And also, because it allows for a lot more control, it is really good for beginners because it gives you the ability to take your time. The gel's not going to be flooding into the cuticle, and you can really take your time to mess around with it. There are some disadvantages with thick gel. Thick gel is easier to create peaks and valleys because it is so thick. So a lot of people make the mistake of painting on this type of gel and they get really, really lumpy nails. So a good tip for this type of gel is use a bunch on your brush and just float it on, allow that gel to move for you. And I will be going into exactly what this looks like when we apply the different types of gels so you understand how to use each individual one. But that is something that is a disadvantage with thick gel, is that it is going to be stickier and it is going to be a little bit harder to get it on the nail without creating a lot of lumps and bumps. So it does have more finish filing needed if that's what you're using it for the whole nail. But for extensions, it's awesome. Okay, thin gel. Thin gel is obviously, it has the advantage of self-leveling, which means that it gets smooth by itself, which means also less filing, because if the nail gets smooth on its own, then that means we don't have to file the surface to get it perfectly smooth. It can also be used for extensions, but because this type of gel does move around, I would recommend using a thin gel for extensions only if you're experienced and you're able to apply gel really quickly. And also you can use thin gel on one finger at a time for extensions, but you're gonna wanna flash cure in between those nails. And flash curing, if you guys haven't heard me say that before, flash curing is essentially just curing the nail for a few seconds, starting that polymerization process and getting the gel to start to solidify a little bit so it's not moving around anymore. You're also going to get less bubbles with thin gel because it's not as sticky and it's less likely to get air trapped inside of the gel. You're not going to get as many bubbles with a thinner gel. And you can also work a lot faster. So you can do one nail at a time, get the whole entire nail done, which I will show you in my extension videos coming up. But you absolutely can work faster, but you have to be able to work faster. So for beginners, a thinner gel might be really overwhelming, but as you get advanced in your gel application, I guarantee you're gonna wanna look for thinner gels because it just allows you to get everything on and move forward with the rest of the appointment. And as we've seen in the overlay videos that I've done up until this point, thinner gel is really good for those because it does self-level, and we're only doing very short length on a natural nail, so it's just really nice for that, okay? So I'm gonna get into how to do extensions in next week's video. Stay tuned, and thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next time. Bye.